Busy day here at Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nick Roloff. We have a bunch of news to get to on today's show, injury-related, ahead of this Week 15 game. Stephen Ross, a selling part of the team. Plus, we'll even look at some Texans injury news on the back end of today's show. But let's start off with the news for Miami that is very, very positive. Bradley Chubb may be back this week. The edge rusher who has yet to play this season due to recovering from that knee injury suffered at the end of last season, but on the PUP list all year long. Obviously had a really dominant 2023 season. May actually make his debut this Sunday against Houston. Mike McDaniel, when asked about the three players trying to return from IR/PUP, said that this week represents a 100% increase in what they've done thus far. I'm just waiting to see the signs of guys that are unable to tolerate not playing in the games anymore and that they're ready. We won't get ahead of ourselves. We'll let it play out. And it's important to see how they ultimately feel this week while getting into the practice and getting into more physical drills after not participating for a long time. But I also want to tell you, make sure you follow me over on Twitter. @Nick_Roloff is my handle, because you would have known about the Bradley Chubb possible return much earlier than our YouTube show if you followed me over on Twitter, because I was talking about it over there. So if you want the most up-to-date Dolphins news and rumors, well, follow me over there and make sure you are subscribed. Well, let's get back to Bradley Chubb now, because if Bradley Chubb was able to return this Sunday against Houston, it would be a massive momentum boost for this Dolphins defense. A defense that has struggled over the last 2 weeks against the Green Bay Packers, gave up 31 points, and against the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets, giving up 26 points. And the defense has been good for most of the season, but it actually has struggled in a couple of key categories, especially in terms of getting after the quarterback and bringing down opposing QBs. The Dolphins have the 29th ranked sack percentage in the NFL, and are bottom 3 in the National Football League in total sacks. And going up against a offensive line in Houston that has really struggled this season, it gives you an opportunity to finally get on track in terms of bringing down opposing quarterbacks. And it would be a very good thing to do against C.J. Stroud, one of the best young quarterbacks in football. And I mentioned the Texans have struggled all year long at this spot. They've actually given up the tied for 6th most sacks in the National Football League. They allow 42 sacks in the first 14 games of the season with their, 13 games of the season with their 8-5 record. But with the Dolphins struggling there, it would be huge to get Bradley Chubb back. Chop Robinson has been a revelation over the past 6 weeks. Emmanuel Ogbah's coming on. You get that good interior pressure from Zach Sealer, from Calais Campbell on the inside, but having two stable edge rushers in Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb in his return potentially could be huge for this Dolphins defense in the final 4 games, where they have to go 4-0 if they want to make the postseason. So predict it for me. Get down in the comment section and let me know. Will Bradley Chubb play this Sunday and make his Dolphins debut in 2024 against the Houston Texans? Type P if you think he'll play. Type W if you think he won't. I ultimately think he does play, but I do want it to be on the record that if Chubb is on the field this Sunday, it will be on a pitch count. Don't expect him to go out there and play 50 snaps. That would just be unfeasible. It would be something uncomprehendable. If the Dolphins defense, say, are out there for 50 snaps this week against the Texans offense, I would expect Bradley Chubb to be out there 10 to 15. Very limited. Only on obvious passing down situations, with him getting eased back into a more full-time role, assuming the Dolphins win. Because if we're going to be honest here, if the Dolphins lose to the Texans and the season is over, there's really not a lot of positives that can come out of the last 3 games if you do play Bradley Chubb, because you don't want him to get re-injured. But you also do got to weigh the possibility of moving him in the offseason and want him to get more tape on the field, so opposing teams could potentially trade for him if you do want to move off of him, because that is something that will be heavily rumored all offseason long. It's a dual-edged sword, but when it comes to this Sunday against Houston, I expect Bradley Chubb to play, but very limited snaps. All right, let's move over to a Dolphins roster move now, because the Dolphins made a surprising one. I actually didn't expect this one to go down, but they designated wide receiver Grant DuBose to return from IR. If you remember, he got injured in Week 2 against the Buffalo Bills. His 21-day practice window opened today. We talked about it last week, but the Dolphins have 2 more slots available to return players off of IR. Well, that's down to 1 now. Grant DuBose will become the 7th guy to be activated off of IR when they make that assessment that he's ready to return. Chubb, Goode will not count because they were on the PUP list before the season, so we're good on that aspect. When you start to think of a potential 8th and final IR movement up. You look at a possible Cam Smith, a possible Tyus Bowser. We'll see if the Dolphins ultimately use all 8 slots of bringing a guy back, but Grant DuBose is coming back, which kind of surprised me. Maybe it has to deal with D. Eskridge's injury. We know River Craycraft is on this roster. I would rather have River Craycraft be active on Sundays over Grant DuBose, even if DuBose is healthy. Odell Beckham Jr. has been a negative, kind of no one this season for Miami. Does he become a healthy and active? I kind of have a feeling that it will just be either Grant DuBose or River Craycraft healthy and active for the final 3-4 weeks of the season once he gets activated. I don't know why they did it. Kind of would have just stashed him on IR for the rest of the season. Let's be real, guys. Wearing pants sucks. Who decided that stiff, uncomfortable fabric digging into your family jewels was necessary to go out and look put together? Whether you're kicking back with holiday movies, making your way through leftovers, or watching bowl games with the boys, these pants have you covered. Heck, they'll even keep you looking sharp for that awkward holiday party with your in-laws. Give the gift of comfort to yourself or someone you love this holiday season with Public Rec's Daymaker pants. And for a limited time, you can get 20% off your entire order with code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. That's 20% off when you use code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. The Daymaker pants are truly amazing. They look like dress pants, but they feel like sweatpants. I love wearing them no matter what the situation is. But they also have other products as well. Long sleeve tees, hoodies, polos. This long sleeve tee fits me perfectly. It makes me feel comfortable. I love representing Public Rec because they make me feel good and put together. And stop suffering in regular pants and give the gift of comfort this holiday season. For a limited time only, our listeners get 20% off when you use code CHAT20 at checkout. That's 20% off with the code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Say goodbye to pants that put up a fight because when comfort meets style, you found Public Rec. All right, let's get into some injury news about the Miami Dolphins now. On Wednesday's practice, David Ferrone is here reporting players they did not see participating: Odell Beckham Jr., Teron Armstead, Calais Campbell, Jordan Poyer, Kendall Lamb, and D. Eskridge. To me, when you look at this list, the only one that concerns me is the left tackle, Teron Armstead, who we've noted throughout the week so far is very unlikely to play against the Houston Texans on Sunday, setting up second-round rookie Patrick Paul to start in his absence, and having to go up against Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter is already giving me nightmares. The other veterans on that list, like Calais Campbell, Jordan Poyer, Odell Beckham Jr., Kendall Lamb, all of them are not participating in practice on Wednesdays, and they haven't been doing that. If you are an older veteran above the age of 30, you are not practicing on Wednesday. You are getting a rest day, so I am not concerned about any of those guys right now. Armstead is the only one that actually has an injury and will likely be missing this week. Maybe D. Eskridge is too, but, I mean, it's not like he plays that often anyway. And make sure you are subscribed because we'll have daily content here at the channel. We'll have videos today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, leading up to that Sunday watch party. We're on the road to 66,000 subscribers. Appreciate all the new subscribers that have joined over the last week or so. Make sure you have subscribed if you haven't already. Let's get into some interesting news here surrounding the Miami Dolphins because, well, guess what, folks? Stephen Ross officially sold some of the team to the Aris Management, and it's an investment group. This has been in the works for some time now. We've known this. We haven't really talked about it that much because I actually don't think it's that big of a deal. Now, some people out there might want Stephen Ross to sell the team, and they want him to sell majority stake. But if you were worried about Stephen Ross selling the entire team, he still controls the majority stake of the organization. Like I said, maybe that is bad news to you. But if you are wondering what the future of the Dolphins organization is and ownership because of the news that you saw come out this morning, well, I'm here to tell you there's nothing to be concerned about. Nothing is really changing at the top of the team. All right, let's get into some Texans injury news before we head out of here, though, today, because there did get a nice, important nugget dropped by Houston. Drew Scruggs, interior offensive lineman for the Texans, who is starting, played all 12 games this season, has given up 5 sacks. He's been up and down, second-year man out of Penn State. He's actually going to be out for 2 weeks, so he is going to miss this game against Miami. That's not a second starter that the Texans will be without for sure. Remember, Azeez Al-Shaair is suspended for this game for that hit he had against Trevor Lawrence before their bye week last week. And that means Kenyon Green is going to possibly be returning to the starting lineup for the Houston Texans. Green has been on IR with an injury. I believe it was a shoulder injury, if I'm remembering what Jeremy Chugs told me correctly. And he is upset about this. Yeah, I'm not kidding. He was mad that the starting left guard at the start of the year is returning for the Texans. He said he's been terrible. You see the numbers, 9 games played, 5 sacks, as we detailed earlier in the show with Bradley Chubb. There is an opportunity for the Dolphins defense to really get home this Sunday and put together a bounce-back week against the Texans offense, which hasn't been as good as advertised and expected this season after 2 bad weeks against Green Bay and the Jets. Who you got in this one? Type MIA for the Dolphins. Type HOU for the Texans. Get your final votes in for this NFL Week 15 game. Hop down in the comment section. And like I said with the defense, there's a big opportunity this week, but there's also a big opportunity for yourself. Listen, you can argue if it's the right thing or the wrong thing, but I truly do believe Mike McDaniel could get on the hot seat, could have his seat warmed up a little bit if the Dolphins struggle at the end of the year and kind of nosedive and miss the postseason. You have a big opportunity to get a win on the road against a good, decent Texans team who is 8-5, top the AFC South. Get yourself with a lot of momentum, confidence going into the final 3 games against San Francisco, Cleveland, New York, because if you win out, there's a decent chance you make the postseason. This is the hardest game you have left. You are underdogs, 3-point dogs in Houston this week. You are returning home next week. You'll be favored against the 49ers, and you will likely be favored against the Browns in Cleveland and against the Jets in New York in the final week of the year. So if you win this one, you'll be favored to win the final 3 games, and you'll have a good opportunity to go 3-0 in those 3 games, 4-0 down the stretch, 5-0 if you count this past Sunday against the Jets, finish the year with double-digit wins, and potentially make the postseason as well. And I know a lot of people don't want that to happen. They want seismic changes inside this organization. I get it, but making the postseason after starting the year 2-6 would be quite the accomplishment and would push this team potentially in the right direction long term. All right, I'll do it for today's show. Like I said, make sure you are subscribed. We'll be live on Sunday for Dolphins Texans. Make sure you join me and Jacques Ladouret for a big-time matchup between Houston and Miami. Should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll see you there.